Okay, so here I want to show a little bit of how to prepare your image for inclusion into 3D. So by that I mean, just some of the toughest things to do in just product design and rendering for product design is including your image into the scene. And one of the biggest things, the telltale signs that it looks sort of photoshopped or rendered, is that it doesn't follow the perspective of the image. That's the tough part, right? So I mean, there are, most software packages now do have kind of a camera replacement or camera alignment so that it does align to your image. And, they work, they work pretty good. Sometimes you want a little bit more accuracy though, and just want to make sure that, your product really fits the area. The area that you want to place it in. Like in this case, this end table that we did was placed in 3D, and what I did was set it up. I set it up with some perspective lines, and the good thing about this image is, so this was shot by a professional photographer, a professional architectural photographer, and they're real sticklers for aligning their images and making sure everything is completely straight. So if I look and put some rulers up here, some guides, you can see that all the lines that are vertical are exactly vertical. There is no kind of wavering in angles or anything like that. Everything is perfectly straight up and down, and that's one of those telltale signs that it was shot by a professional photographer. There's no convergence up and down, and then the next thing too is that all the furniture is nicely aligned. The tables and everything, you can kind of see that everything follows the perspective lines. So we can use a lot of that so that we can place it over our image. So one of the things that I like to do in preparing my image for 3D is to include some of my own lines, my own perspective lines. And I can either do that with paths, or you can just go in and with the line tool, which is sitting over here right under the rectangle tool. There's some polygonal tools as well. You can do circles and things like that, but this is just a basic line tool. And with the line tool selected, I make sure that either it's set to pixels. I mean, it could be set to paths, but what these will do, they'll set up either a shape or a path, and it gets a little bit more complex. I just want some basic pixels here. And so I have my layer, a new layer set up, just a blank layer. Make sure that everything is deselected so that you don't have any problems with the drawing of these lines. I have my line weight, because it's a relatively high resolution image. 2 was too narrow, so I have it set to 10 pixels. So the width of the line as I draw it, it'll be 10 pixels across. Undo that. And I also have it set to red. So, I mean, it could be a lighter red, something that just stands out from the image. All right, so now this is where I can see, maybe I just lay down like two lines first, following the vanishing points. So I'll do this one first, and then maybe one on the ceiling, and I kind of just see where they fall. So I can see my vanishing point is out here outside of the canvas. So, and I do want to align that. So what I want to do first is to set my canvas size just slightly bigger. So I'm going to either set the canvas size this way, or you can do it with the crop tool. So you can just use your crop tool, and you can see if I just make a crop around my image, if I extend it this way and hit return, it gives you a little extra room. So sometimes you may need that just to see where these lines fall. So I'm going to go over it again, and these lines don't have to be super accurate, just as long as you try to follow the vanishing points as best you can. You can extend beyond what you think is the vanishing point. Probably the further the better. I'll start here again. Okay, so it looks like this is where my vanishing point falls, so you can kind of further confirm that with other lines. Right, so sometimes they don't exactly overlap. I mean, I don't know how the furniture was placed or the rug, but they generally fall within the same area here. So, you know, sometimes maybe the furniture wasn't aligned perfectly, but generally the setup is just that. So normally the windows would be perfectly, you know, in line, and it looks like they are. Right, so it looks like this is where my vanishing point is, right in there. And so with that, now I can start drawing my lines from the vanishing point and start placing it out here. So I can just overlay some of these lines on top of the product. And it looks like I could use a little help with some of my perspective on the product that we had here, but you know, this is just a primer on how to do this, right? So if you also want to follow the second vanishing point, you know, we may have to go in and extend the canvas a little bit further. I'll do that the same way. I'll set my crop tool, select everything, and then extend it out a little bit. Okay, so now you can do the same thing. You can choose another color if you want, you know, maybe so to kind of differentiate from what you had before. So let me start with this. All right, whoops, I gotta have my line tool selected. So I select line. I'll go with the ceiling. Extend out as far as I can here. Let's see, I'm gonna maybe use the table. So it looks like the vanishing point's way out here, right? But not too far off from here. So I hit C for crop. Maybe I'll extend it just slightly more. And I get these little boxes here because there are no pixels out here. You know, this is no man's land as far as pixels are concerned, and that's because this bottom layer is a layer. It's not a background. You know, if you had a background, then what would happen is these areas here that you extend will just go to the background color, whatever it is. So, and that's okay too. You know, it's just so you may not be getting these same little checkerboard pattern. This just kind of represents that it's empty back here. All right, so I'm going to go back to my line. Maybe help extend some of these. All right, so that's closer to where the vanishing point is. And then you can just, so if that's roughly where it is, you can go in and just, you know, set those lines over, you know, over your product. So it looks like we got pretty close there. So there you go. So, oh, you know what? I did make a mistake on this last one. I did have that selected on this. The last couple of images. All right, so I'm going to go back to my layer here. And you know, if you don't want to draw over it, like this is very important, you can always lock it. So I should have just locked it from being able to draw over it. So now that it's locked from brushes, see how it gives me the little warning here. I can't paint over this. So you may want to lock it to the brush level, not fully out here to crop or you know, just full out locking, but just to the brush level. That way you're not painting over your product here, so, or your image. So if this is my vanishing point, I'm going to go back out here. So let's say this is where you want to place it, you know, so this will help a lot, you know, when you bring this image into 3D and since this is, maybe before you render this out, let's say this is where you want to place it. This is where you would align those pixels. So you would save this out as a JPEG. So you go up here, File, JPEG, and then use this image with all these lines as your backdrop for your, for your rendering to help align it. And remember, this can get masked out or replaced, with a second image later on. So, like in this case, now I know where the vanishing points are out here. So I can go back and crop it if I wanted to. So this should snap to the end. There we go. Hit return to crop. And so that way you're left with the same resolution as you started. All right, so we just don't have the reference of the vanishing points out here, but that's okay. We're already done with the reference. And now you can save this out as a JPEG, and this becomes your temporary background for your, for your alignment for your 3D image. All right, so there you go. So some quick tips on kind of a perspective setup for the image that you plan to use, so everything looks correct. Thank you.